Lord be with you. Well, what is in your playlist? What are those things that you are listening to or reading or watching, especially during these days of pandemic, when all of us are just trying to get through our days? We're trying to stay healthy in mind and in body and in spirit. So just a reminder, these volumes are for more than just the community at Zion. We really are just trying to expand ways where we think about things through a spiritual lens, but not necessarily things that are overtly Christian in themselves. But again, all sorts of entertainment and media can be prayers and reflections to God about how we're feeling and what we're going through. And sometimes art does a pretty good job of putting into words what we're feeling societally. So again, if you know of people who might benefit from these kinds of discussions, if you find these particularly valuable, then by all means share them, or on YouTube, click the like, thumbs up, hit the bell to subscribe. And please contribute to the comments. We want to sort of treat this as a virtual community where we can share our thoughts and our ideas and just kind of help each other get through these days. So in Volume 1, we looked at a movie. In Volume 2, we looked at a song. And now I want to come back to a film again. This time, a different kind of film. This film is called Testament. This came out in 1983. This was not a movie that I had heard about, not a movie that I had seen, but essentially my wife had told me years and years ago that in school they watched a made-for-TV movie called The Day After, which was about nuclear holocaust and what sort of the Cold War produced, just kind of played on those kinds of fears. She said it just deeply and profoundly disturbed her. Still a movie to this day, even though it was made for TV, that she remembers. So every once in a while, I kind of do a search. That's still something that I haven't seen. I haven't seen The Day After. So every once in a while, I do a search to see if I can find it. And somehow, by searching for that, I came across a few years ago on Amazon Prime this movie, Testament. Came out around the same time as The Day After. And if I understand the story correctly, it was originally shot for television. It was meant to be something that played on PBS. But apparently, it had such high production value, and I think the studios had enough confidence in it that somebody, I think it was Paramount, picked it up and actually released it theatrically. It's based on a short story called The Last Testament, and it also is about sort of Cold War, nuclear winter type themes. What I really enjoyed about this movie is that it doesn't have any big special effects. There are no scenes of airplanes or the dropping of a bomb or what nuclear devastation would look like. Instead, it completely and utterly follows a small town in California that just hears secondhand that there have been nuclear strikes along the western coast of the United States. I think elsewhere as well, but obviously it was the western coast that affected them because they also lived in California. And then as the story progresses, it's just a very intimate view of this one family and how they interact with the community and what happens to the community as day after day people have to sort of deal with the unknowns, as well as sort of how the environment and even their own sanity is getting affected by the fallout from this nuclear war that they themselves didn't participate in, they themselves didn't have a direct ground zero type incident from, but nevertheless, they do have all of these after effects from it. The reason I particularly think that this is a good recommendation for your pandemic playlist is just how many parallels there are, regardless of what the crisis is. It doesn't matter if it's a nuclear holocaust, nuclear winter, or a worldwide pandemic. There are just all these infrastructure things that happen. So in the movie, you have a family trying to deal with outside information, and all of that information is broken and disjointed, and you're kind of getting rumors from one person to the next person, one household, one side of town, somebody who's got a CB radio and they're trying to listen to coastal stations and get information, and it just goes to show you, as I think we're going through today, how you hear all sorts of different reports and they all kind of contradict one another, and you're never really sure 100% what's going on. It also has this ongoing theme of there are certain members of the family who are missing because when the attack happened, based upon where people were staying or working or whatever, they haven't made it back yet. And people are just kind of holding their breaths, holding on, waiting with a little bit of hope that maybe their loved one, their family member, their neighbor might return. Maybe they're just complications they don't know about. And slowly over the course of the movie, you start to see that hope get tested and eroded. And it's just this ongoing battle, which reminds me, even in our situation, how much hope is a choice. Hope is something you have to willingly participate in. It's not just something that's gifted to you and you have it eternally. You need to keep stoking those fires of hope. There's also this ongoing theme as the family struggles to survive, shortages in supplies, gas and food and all of these sorts of things, electricity. And it's this interesting mix of how neighbors help each other or sometimes work against one another. And what kind of neighbor would you be? You know, when there's not enough toilet paper at the grocery store, or certain people are getting all of their supplies, but other people can't get out. You know, are you willing to help? Are you willing to be a team player instead of just looking out for yourself? And then there's just this ongoing theme of care and compassion. As a matter of fact, there's a town minister who, as people slowly start to get radiation poisoning, he has to keep going over and providing counseling and doing these funerals. And by the end of the movie, you see him just utterly exhausted, utterly confused, utterly drained. He's just a shell of his former self. And I think about all those people who work in care industries, especially during a pandemic, we just have this capacity or probability that we're going to get some kind of emotional burnout. And yet we have to keep caring for one another. There are some incredibly gut-wrenching scenes in here. I was moved to tears at least one point, if not more. And it really is, as the title suggests, it's this testament to the human will and our desire to not just survive, but to love and to be hopeful and to be helpful and caring towards one another. So that is why I am going to recommend the movie Testament for your pandemic playlist. If this is a movie that you have seen and you have any memories about it, positive or negative, feel free to drop those in the comment section below. If it's something you haven't seen and you're able to, check it out and let me know what you think. Even if you didn't like it, I mean, it's okay. We all have different tastes. I just want to see what is good for your playlist. What is something that provokes some good feedback and interaction for you. And again, just helps us cope and get through these days well. If you have any suggestions for a movie or a song or a book for me to check out and to potentially recommend as part of our pandemic playlist, feel free to drop that as well. We just, again, want to be a community who stays prayerful for one another and stays positive and just does what we can, even virtually, to take care of one another. So in these days of ongoing pandemic, may the peace of God be with you. Amen.